Hi everyone, my name is Veena, and firstly I would just like to thank you all for joining our SchoolMoney webinar today. As all pupils will be returning back to school next week, we thought we would put together this webinar to help you prepare. So the agenda for today is to show you how to set up dinner weeks, how to set up new catering menu items if you have the cashless catering set up, setting up club weeks and changing the durations, managing the students that are in your dinner or club registers via the payment itself or via Register Manager, sending reset password messages to parents and welcome messages to new pupils, how to use the money overdue reports to send out reminders for arrears, and how to reconcile weekly payments using the static banking reconciliation report. Before we start, I just wanted to point out that my colleagues Richard and Ria are also present, and they will be answering any of your questions via the chat facility. So if you can ask those questions throughout the webinar, and if we do have some time, then we can go through some during the end of the webinar as well. If we don't cover all the questions, then we will try and respond to those individuals at some point as well. So to start off with, I'm going to show you how to create dinner weeks. So there's two ways that you can do this. One of the ways is via the dinner register itself. So I'm going to show you that way first of all. So if you click on the dinner register tab, if you have got more than one dinner register set up, so maybe you've got a staff register, a nursery dinner register, or a student dinner register, you will need to choose this drop down here to select the dinner register that you'd like to create the week for. And then you can set the date. So if we want to set up next week's register, we can change the date to next week. Press OK when the alert comes up. And then using the filter drop down, we can then filter by the year group or the form, or simply set the filter to all. And we can now see all the pupils in the register. Now, if there are any days that you don't want to make available to parents, if you are doing pre-bookings, for example, you can block these days out by marking it as a holiday, inset day, or school trip. And then once you are happy with the setup of the week, you then just press save in the bottom right-hand corner. And once saved, this week is now available to parents. So if I refresh, which is F5, we can now see the week on our payment screen, and then you would just need to make the week online to make it available to your parents. So that's how we do that through the dinner register. I'm going to show you how to do it through the payments tab as well, which is going to be especially good if you are doing pre-bookings and you want to set up several weeks in advance. So through the payments tab, if I click on the add button in the bottom right-hand corner, select dinner money from the drop down, and then create payment. Again, depending on how many registers you've got, you would select the register that you'd like to create the weeks for. And then this way you would set up the start and end dates depending on how many weeks that you'd like to create. So if I change the date to the 15th for this one, and then the end date, the end of the month, and then press save, we can now see that we've got all the weeks that I've just created on our main screen. Okay, so that's how we set up the weeks. If I actually double click into one of these payments, if you are a cashless catering school and you have rotating menus, what you will need to do is attach your menu to the week itself. So you should be able to see the menus that you have available in this drop down where it's got catering menu, and then you would assign the menu for that particular week. So if I just choose menu 1, and then you would press save. And because we have set up several weeks in advance, you can attach the menu for each week that you've created. I will show you how to, where the menus are set up when we get to the admin section, but this is where you would assign the actual menu to the payment. If some of your children are missing from the register and you need to add them in, you can do that from the payment itself or through Register Manager. So I'll show you how to do it through this payment. And because we're already in this payment, I'll just show you for this particular week. If I click on Manage Students here in the bottom left-hand corner, All the children on the left-hand side of this screen are not included in the register. The ones on the right-hand side are included in the register. So if we need to remove anybody from this register, we can just click on the remove button next to their names. And to add anybody in, we just click on add next to their names. And then once they've moved across, we then press save, and they will now be available on the register for the 8th of March. If you have set up several weeks in advance, you would need to repeat the same process for all the weeks that you've created if you want to do it through managed students. But like I said, I will show you how to do it through register managers as well, which is a lot easier. So once you've done that, that will then obviously make them available on the actual register itself. Okay, so I'm just going to press save. Just to point out as well, if you can't see the children in the register and you can't actually see the children in managed students on the left-hand side, it could be that they haven't actually imported across from your management information system. So you may need to run the import and have a look in the admin student section of SchoolMoney to see that they are actually there. Because if they're not, like I said, you will need to run the import first before you can manage the students. Okay, so I'm just going to close out of here. So with regards to cashless catering, I'm going to talk you through how you can actually amend your dinner items or add a new item if you need to do that. So if you are using the cashless catering bolt-on, you can go to admin and scroll down to dinner items. And then we should be able to see all the items that are available for your menus. Now, if you need to make a change to one item, you can double click on the item and make the change. So if the item name needs to change or the price needs to change, or maybe the option is only available on a Monday, so you can untick the days this option is not available. So you can make those changes on this screen. You can also assign it to a menu if you need to, and then attach pictures if you need to, and then just save it. So that's how you can make a change to an existing option. If you need to add a new option in, we just click add in the bottom right hand corner, give the item a name, add a price, choose what days the option is available, what menu you would like it to be attached to, what year groups it's available to, whether it's only available to staff or students, and then you would just press save again. So that's if you've just got like a single item that you'd need to add onto the system. But what I will say is if you have got a completely brand new menu that you need to add onto the system, maybe, you know, for the next term, then it is kind of better that you fill out the spreadsheet for us and send it to our support team so we can upload it for you. If you don't have access to the spreadsheet, you can download it from this icon over here where it's got import dinner menu. And you just download this file template, which will give you the spreadsheet that you can complete and send back to us. So I'm now going to show you how to create club weeks, which works in the same way as dinner weeks. So if I go to the club register, I'm going to show you how to do it through the register first of all. Again, depending on how many clubs you've got set up, use this first drop down to obviously go between the two different registers. And then again, I'm going to choose the 8th of March because I want to set up a week for next week. We can change the filter again, depending on whether we just want to change it to a year group, a form group, or again, just leave it on all. And then again, using these days drop down, we can block out any days that are unavailable if you need to do that. And then again, we just press save in the bottom right-hand corner. And then once saved, you press OK. And this week will now be available on the payment screen. So if I refresh F5, on our payment screen, we can now see the after school club. And again, just make it online to your parents when you want to make it available to them. Again, I'll show you how to do it through the payments tab if you want to set up several weeks in advance. So again, we go to add in the bottom right-hand corner. Select the payment type as club extended services and then create payment. Again, using this drop down where it's got select club register, you would select the club register that you'd like to create the weeks for. And again, with this way, you can set up multiple weeks if you need to. So I'm going to change the date to the 15th of March as my start date and the end date as the 26th of March because I want to set it 2 more weeks, and then press save. And now we can see the 3 weeks that we've created for After School Club. Okay. Now I'm going to go into the After School Club payment. Now, if your cost has changed, you can change your cost within the payment itself by clicking on Configure Durations. And we can see here the different prices we've got set up for After School Club. Now, if you need to add a new price in, we can change the durations per day and add in any more if we need to. And then all you would then do is add in the new price and the description and then press save. If you need to remove it, you just change the durations to 1 if you need to. Okay. If you need to update your limited spaces, that can be done through settings. And then you can just change the limit spaces in this box and then again press save. Whatever settings or costings you change is only changing for this particular week. So again, because we have set up a few weeks in advance, you would need to repeat the same process for the other weeks that you have created. You can also manage your students from this payment as well. So again, we're just going to manage students. And again, anyone on the left-hand side is not included in our register, but the ones on the right are included. So again, if you need to take anybody out, just press remove next to their names. And if you need to add anybody in, you press add next to their names. And once they've moved across, you then just press save. So again, if you have obviously made any changes to this payment, it is only going to apply to this particular week itself. So again, you would need to repeat the same process for the future weeks that you've created. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how to use the Register Manager, which will allow you to update the children for all the weeks that we've created rather than doing it a week at a time through the Payments tab. So if I go to Admin and then Register Manager, what we need to do first of all is select the register that we'd like to make the changes to. So if I choose School Dinners, we can see all the weeks that have been created. Okay, so we can untick any that we don't need and then just tick the ones that we want to update the pupils for, and then click on Manage Register Memberships. We can then use these filters here if we want to include a whole year group or, form group. Just depends on who you want to include in this actual register. Or we can select the children individually. Okay, but I'll just move all of them across. And then click on Manage Register Memberships. And then using these round circles, we can click on them, or these ones over here, to add the children into the actual register weeks. So if I click on this, they'll turn orange. And as you can see over here, they are the students that we're going to add to the payment. So the ones that are in orange are not currently in the weeks. And when we click on this, they will highlight in orange and they will be added in. So if I now press save, all those pupils will now be included on those 3 weeks that we selected earlier. So the same process applies to After School Club and Breakfast Club. Again, you do the same thing. So again, I'll just tick the weeks that I want to include them in. Manage Register Memberships. Again, pick out the children that you want to include in those registers. Add them across. Manage Register Memberships. And again, using these round circles, click on the weeks that we want to include them in. They go orange, and then we press save. So now again, they're available on that register as well for After School Club. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to show you is how to send a password reset to any parents that have forgotten their password. And we can do that through Admin Students. And you can send a reset password to more than one parent at the same time just by ticking all the people that you need to send the reset password to, and then click on Action in the bottom left-hand corner. And then it's Send Reset Password Message. And then we can see a list of all the people that we're going to send the message to. We can choose whether it's going by text message, email, or both. And then once you're happy, you then just press Send Reset Message. Okay. It's always a good idea to check the contact information on this screen to make sure that the information is the same as what your parents are using online. And if it is different, then it's always a good idea to update it in your management information system, run the update to pull across the changes to SchoolMoney. So just double check that before you send the reset password out to your parents. If you've had any new starters and they need the welcome message, again, we can tick the new children, and then using the action drop down again in the bottom left, this time we're going to click on send welcome message. You can reword the message if you want to, but if you're happy, we just click on send reminders. And again, that will just send out a password to all the new parents. Okay. I'm going to now move on to the report section. So if I go to reports, okay, so you may have several people that are overdue and have a lot of arrears, and there's 3 different reports that you can use to chase those parents. So one of the reports is this money overdue report, and this one will show you all of your debt, okay? But as a default, it's only the last 7 days worth of debt. So if you are just looking for one particular child, maybe it's just one payment type, you will need to go into filters. And then using the filters, you can then find the individual child if you need to. Maybe it's a whole year group or a class. But if you want to see all of your debt, I would make sure that all the filters are set to all, including the due date. And then press OK, and that will then show us all of our debt. If there's anybody on this list that you don't want to chase, we can just untick them. And then the rest of them, we just click on Chase Overdue in the bottom right-hand corner, and then you send those parents a reminder. Okay. Another way to chase parents, if I could come out of this one, is through the dinner arrears report. So rather than using the money overdue report, if you just want to chase dinner money, we can click on the dinner arrears report. This is your debt for the whole academic year. So again, I would go into filters just in case there is debt from previous academic years, and just make sure that all the filters are set to all again. Click OK. And then again, if there's anybody that you don't want to chase, you can untick them. And then again, using the Chase Overdue button, send those parents reminders. The same works for the club arrears report, but again, this is just chasing your club payments, the ones that you're going to use the registers for. Again, as a default, it's only for this academic year. So again, go into filters and filter it however you need to. But again, I would probably suggest making sure all the filters are set to all. It will give you the list of everyone that's overdue. And again, using the Chase Overdue button, you can chase those parents for their debt. I come out of there, click on the back button, and I'm just going to show you the static banking reconciliation report. So this report is going to help you reconcile against your bank statement. So the way it works is anyone that pays by debit card, credit card, or PayPoint, and that is between Monday to Sunday, those payments will be collected together into one lump sum, and then it's paid into your bank accounts the following Friday as a lump sum. So when you see that amount on your bank statement, if you need a breakdown for it, this is the report that you would go into to see that breakdown. And if you have got more than one bank account, you can choose the bank account from the bank account drop down. If you've got different cost centers or ledger codes, you can use the reference drop down to narrow your search down. And then in the top right-hand corner, you will see the total amount received for that reference, and then the individual transactions that make up that amount on the report itself. So that concludes today's webinar. I hope you found it beneficial. I am going to leave the session open so we can go through some of the questions. I have had some questions, so I will go through some of them right now with you. One of the questions that I've had sent across to me was whether the register that you use for dinners, whether you have to do it manually, or because you're using Sims, you want to know whether the dinners can be imported directly from Sims. So with regards to that, if you're using Sims, it depends on whether you're using Sims Dinner Money. If you're using Sims Dinner Money, then there is a way on the system where you can export the data from Sims and then import it into SchoolMoney. So within the guide section, there is a guide in there called the Sims Dinner Money Guide. If you have a look at that, it will show you how to export the data from Sims and then import it in SchoolMoney, so that you don't have to record the dinners in yourself. If it's not Sims Dinner Money that you were referring to and it's the attendance, then attendance can also be imported into SchoolMoney if you're using Sims. And again, in the guide section, within the Dinner Money Guide itself, there is a report showing you how to export the attendance from Sims and then import it into SchoolMoney. Another question I've had is how to make a payment online. So if I go back to the Payments tab, to make a payment online, there's a couple of different ways that you can do this. One of the ways is by double-clicking into the payment itself and then changing this online status to on and then pressing save. Okay. You can actually also send a message from the actual payment itself, and by doing that, that will then make the payment online as well for you. So that's another way. And one final way is on this actual payment screen, what you can do is tick all the payments that you want to make online. And then using the action drop down in the bottom left, you can click on set online or offline. And using this drop down over here, change it from offline to online and then press OK. And that will make all the payments online that we ticked earlier. Yes, you can make the items online in advance for dinners. So you would just, like I said, just make the weeks online when you're ready for your parents to start booking for dinners. There is a system cut-off time, which is midnight the day before if you obviously, so parents can't actually book on the day itself if you are doing bookings. But if you want to switch your payments off before midnight day before, same process, just make them offline if you need to, just by clicking on the action drop down and changing it to offline. So once it's offline, they can't make bookings. Okay. I've had a question about charity donations, like Comic Relief, and basically setting up a payment as a donation payment. So you have to actually have a fixed amount on the system. So if I just go into this particular payment, when you do set up a payment, you do actually have to add in an amount in the amount box. So even if you just set it up as £1, there does need to be an amount in the box itself. But then you can go into settings and you can choose the voluntary option. And with the voluntary option, if you have set up the amount as £1, if somebody only decides to contribute 50 pence, it will automatically write off the remaining 50 pence. But also with the voluntary option, your parents can also pay more than £1 as well if they want to. So that will be a good option for voluntary, but you do need to specify the amount in the actual amount box yourself. Okay, so I've had another question about topping up for dinners. If the actual payment is offline, yes, you can. Your parents can still top up for dinners, even if the payment is online. The top-up status is always visible to parents if you're using the dinner money option, and they can top up however much they want to. So even though you may have set up a default top-up amount, which is in the admin section in parent options, even though your default amount might be £13, the actual top-up facility will always be visible to your parents, and they can top up any amount whenever they want to. I'll just check if there's any other questions. Okay, so I've had another question come through. So if you are using the, it's basically asking if parents can top up using the PayPoint option. So if your school is using PayPoint, which is an additional bolt-on, you should have printed out the barcode for them. I'll just show you how to print out a barcode. It's through admin, students, and you can double click on the child, and then using this print PayPoint slip button, you can then print out the barcode for them. So you would need to provide that barcode to your parents. they can then take it to the local supermarket, newsagent or shop and use the barcode to top up. So I've had another question come through saying, does the balance automatically reduce if someone pays a lump sum? Yes, so with regards to dinners and clubs, if you are using the top-up facility, when somebody does put an amount towards dinners or clubs, when you start recording their dinners or their sessions into the registers, that balance will start reducing down. So I've had another question come through asking if they have debt and the parents top up, will it remove the debt automatically? Yes, again, it will do that as well. As long as the parents have, selected the payment they want to allocate the payment to, then yes, it will automatically go towards that. So I've had a question here about having 32 spaces in a school club. How do I make it so nobody else pays? If you've only got 32 spaces in the club, once those 32 spaces are taken, nobody else will be able to book for that particular club. But if there are spaces available, then they will be able to. So if you do want to stop anybody else, then you just need to make the payment offline yourself. But if there are spaces available, then they can book. But if there isn't, then they won't be able to book. Just check if there's any other ones. Okay, so I've had a question about how to see a pupil's dinner money balance. So we can actually see that in various different ways. One of the ways is actually through the dinner register. We can see in the register itself what the cost that they've paid so far and what obviously they've actually paid so far, and if they've got any arrears, and also if they've actually paid any credit towards dinner money. So we can see that through the register, but we can also see in the cashier tab, we can find a child, and then we can see in the top right-hand corner what dinner money balance they've got over here, and any outstanding payments as well through the cashier tab itself. Had another question about removing levers. So to remove a lever, have a look first of all if the levers have got any debt. If they have got debt, then you may need to write off their debt first of all, or chase them for their payments. But once you've done that and you want to take them off the system, you can do that by going into admin, students. If there's more than one child, you can just tick all the pupils that you want to off-roll. And then using the action drop-down, click on update admission status, and then you just change it from on-roll to off-roll and then press OK. Just check if there's any other questions. So I've had a question about making a refund back to a parent if they've paid too much on dinners. Yes, you can do that through the cashier tab. So if they've got a lot of credit on dinners or credit overall, you'll see this in this parenting credit by section over here, and you can actually click on the amount, and that will then give you a breakdown of their credit. And what you then need to do is highlight the payment that you'd like to make a refund for, and then click on refund. And with regards to the refund, you would need to make the refund back in the same way that they've paid you. So if they have paid online, then you are able to refund them back onto the same card that they've paid on. But if they did pay by cash or check, then you would need to provide them with the cash or write them a check back. So I've had another question about if you're doing pre-bookings for dinners, are parents able to credit their account without booking the meals. No, it's either one way or the other. So if your school is doing pre-bookings, the way that will work is that the parents will actually select the days that they would like their child to have a hot dinner in school, and they will pay for those dinners at the same time. So they can't actually put a lump sum towards dinners. So the only time they can put a lump sum towards dinners if you're doing the top up instead of pre-bookings. But in school, if they do provide you with a credit, you can put that through yourself through the cashier tab. And then we can click on multiple payments in the bottom left-hand corner, and you can use the dinner top-up to put a credit towards the parent's account if you want to in school. But on the parent side, if you're doing pre-bookings, then they will be selecting the days that they would like to have a dinner and pay for those dinners, so they can't actually top up. Just to point out to you, so somebody's asked about where the guides are. The guides are just over here in the top right-hand corner, where it's got this little book icon, and there are lots of guides in there, parent guides, and there's even an introduction letter for parents if you do need to send out letters to your parents. And you've also got our support form over here as well, which you can use to submit a support ticket as well if you need to do that. There's some more questions. Let me just have a look. So I've got a question here about adding a new child into Sims, then that you didn't add them into SchoolMoney. Okay, so if you're adding a child into Sims, what you need to do is run the Sims link so they pull across into SchoolMoney. Okay, and have a look in the admin section, students, to see whether they've imported across. Once they've imported across, then you can then add them into any payments. And how I showed you earlier about adding them into registers, you will need to complete that process before you'll actually see them on the registers. They don't automatically get included in registers. So if you can't see them in admin students, then you need to run the link. It should be on your desktop. It should be a red box, or even a cogwheel, and it should be something called T2P1 V44. And you just double click on that icon to run your update, to pull across the updates from Sims. But if you're using a different MIS system, then you'll need to log into Teachers to Parents and go into Admin and run the Wand update. So it just depends on your MIS. So I've had another question about if parents pay me cash or check, and if it's been credited to the account, can parents then go online and make the bookings? Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So once you've recorded the payment onto the cashier tab, the credit will then be available to that parent, and they'll see on their side as a credit, and then they can then use that credit to make any bookings for dinners or clubs if you are doing pre-bookings. I'll just check if there's any other questions. So with regards to importing the attendance or the Sims dinner money from Sims, the one I mentioned earlier, it will either be the attendance report that you need to download or the supervisors list, which needs to be imported into SchoolMoney. But like I said, there are guides on how you can actually do this. If you do need any support with that, have a look at the guide section, or again, just submit a support ticket, and then we can obviously go through that with you. I've had a question about universal infant free school meals and that they're not being set up correctly. If that is correct, obviously some of the children are not set up for universal infant free. The best thing to do is submit a support ticket, and then somebody from our side will actually enable this option for you so that it's set up for anyone that's in reception year 1 and 2. Just check if there's any other questions. So I've had a question about if one sibling has dinner credit but the other child owes money, can it be moved over? Yes, absolutely. If that's what the parent wants to do, again, you can do that through the cashier tab. You'll see again over here where it's got parenting credit by, if that person has got any credit. And what you need to do is click on the credit amount, select the credit that you'd like to move across to the sibling, and then click on transfer credit to sibling, and that will then get moved across to the other child. Once it's moved across to the other child, you can then actually select the payment that you want to allocate the payment to, and then using the drop down where it's got action, select pay by credit. Okay, I'm just going to have a look if there's any other questions. Okay, so I've had a question about taking payments from sports coaches for DBS checks. So with regards to this, what you'll need to do first of all is add them onto the system as a visitor. So to add them onto the system as a visitor, we can go into admin, and you can either do this in the student section or the staff member section. Click on add in the bottom right hand corner and then add them onto the system. So just add in their first name, surname if you have that information, and then change the year group and form to visitor, admission status to on roll, add in their mobile number and email address, and then save them on the system. Once you've actually saved them on the system, you then just need to send them a welcome message. So they've got their own password. So to send them a welcome message, just to remind you, just tick them. And then using the action drop down, click on send welcome message and send them that welcome message. But before they'll actually see any payments online, you would need to create the payment for them for the DBS payment. So you would do that through the payments tab, click on add, select the type of payment you want to set up. You can just choose other, create payment, give it a name, give it a cost, and then when you add the manage the students, you just find the visitor that we added in earlier. Okay, so I've had another question about whether parents are able to use their credit they have on dinners to be able to pay for trips or other activity. So parents can't move credit around themselves online, and obviously that's due to bank details, depending on how many different bank accounts you have. But if you want to in school, you can move it around for them. And again, that's just by having a look in the cashier tab to see whether they've got any credit, and then using the actual action drop down to use the pay by credit option. But if you have got different bank accounts, then it is advisable to keep your credit separate, because the credit is only moving on the SchoolMoney system and it's not physically going to move between your accounts. So yeah, just double check that before you move credit around between different payment types. Another question on here about taking payments for uniform items, revision guides and stationery. So we have actually got the shop facility where you can include those items. And what you need to do is click on add in the bottom right hand corner and give your item a name. So if you have got different sizes for uniform, I would list the items separately so your parents know what they're ordering online, but also when they do come to collect it, you know what they're coming to collect. You can add in the price, the quantity, and also a stock alert level, and then you would just save it. Once that item is available to parents online, they can then order the item online and pay for that order at the same time, but they will need to come into the office to collect their order. So you can have a look at the go to item collection button here in the bottom left hand corner, and this page will show you if there's any orders that have come through. And if there are any orders, you would just tick them once you give them out and mark the item as collected. I'll just check if there's any other questions. I've had a question about having paid items, so items that have been paid off, how to archive those payments. So you can actually archive the payments individually or as a bulk. So if you want to archive a payment individually, again, you can tick the little boxes next to all the payments you want to archive. And again, using the action drop down, you can click on archive, and that will then archive them and put them in the background if they've been paid off. But if you've got several items that need archiving, you can just click on archive all just over here in the bottom left, and that will archive all payments that have been paid off. So I've had a question about if a visitor would like a school meal, how do you record that? Again, you would need to make sure that you've got a visitor account set up in the admin section first of all. So like I showed you earlier, you need to create a visitor account first of all. And then once you've done that, they then need to be added into the payment. So by going into manage students and adding the visitor into the actual week that you want to record the dinner for. So if I double click into the 8th, manage students, add the visitor across, and then save it. And then once you've added them into the payment, you can then go to the dinner register, change the date to the 8th, and then you can then record the dinner for the visitor. Okay, by just clicking on the white box so it goes green and then pressing save. So let's have a look if there's any other questions. So I've had a question about if parents are pre-booking online for dinners or clubs, do they have to pay up front for their bookings to be accepted? Yes, absolutely. If you've got the pre-booking option, it depends. So with the dinner side of things, if you are doing pre-bookings, then they do need to book and pay at the same time. They can't book without paying unless they're free or universal. With the club, it depends on what settings you've got set up. So if I go into this particular club and go into settings, if you've only got online booking session switched on, that will mean that that parent has to then book and pay for that session upfront. But what you can do is switch on the enable reservations as well if you wanted to, and that will then allow the parents to book online and pay for it later. So it just depends on clubs whether you've got this switched on or not. So I think I've got another question about the shop to see who's ordered items for collection. So if I go back to shop, and I'll just show you where that is again. So if you want to see a list of all the orders that have come through, you need to go to the shop tab and then go to item collection. If I just change this to all, we can then see all the orders that have come through. And when Billy comes to the school to collect the order, you just need to tick it off to show that they've collected the item, and then mark the item as collected, add a collection note, and then press save, and that will then be taken off this screen. Had another question, let's have a look. Okay, so I've had a question about if a payment for a trip is cancelled and some people have already paid and you've already done the refund, how to get rid of the actual payment itself. So what you'll need to do first of all is obviously the refunds that you've done, that's fine. But if there are still children in the actual payment, you would either need to write off their amounts, so it shows that they're not owing that payment, or you can just go into manage students and remove them from the payment and then press save. And then what you'll then see is there'll be nothing outstanding on the actual payment screen. And once nothing is outstanding, you can then archive the payment. Just have a look if there's any other questions. I think that's all the questions then that have come through. If we have missed any, then we will obviously reply to those individuals separately. But thank you once again for joining our webinar today. There will be a quick survey at the end when you do leave the webinar, so please give us any feedback or any suggestions for any future webinars. But enjoy the rest of your day and thank you for your time today.